Welcome to Power Half Hour. We're going to be talking about your resume. Learning objectives that we have for today are at the end of this resume writing webinar, you will be able to describe the purpose of a resume, list of 4 main sections of a resume, teach you how to write an effective resume bullet point, and to select the best resume fonts and format. The main purpose of a resume is to get the interview. This is not a opportunity for you to put everything that you've ever done. We want the resume to be something that attracts employers and that it's aligned with the jobs that you are going for. Just some of the resume basics. So when it comes to resumes, there are 2 common formats. So the first one is the chronological, and that's the one that you are probably most familiar with, starting with the most recent job that you had at the top and probably your first job that you ever had down towards the bottom of the screen. And they do that so that employers can kind of quickly skim through to get a feel for where you're working and what kind of experiences that you've had. We also have what's called a functional resume, and that focuses on your skills and experiences rather than your chronological work history. But today, what we're going to be focusing on is the chronological. A resume should be 1 page. And that is something that a lot of students struggle with, is how do I get all my experiences down onto 1 page? Employers look at your resume as like a writing sample. They want to see, is this person a good writer? You should be clear, concise, not to use I or my statements on your resume. We use more of generic terms, not necessarily focusing in on your pronoun. When formatting your resumes, it should be using a clear and readable font such as Times New Roman, Calibri, Cambria, or Arial. It has to be something that's readable. It can't be too funky. The font size should be between 10 and 12. And be careful with your bolding, underline, or italics and capitalization to add emphasis, because it is possible to do over bolding or over italics or over capitalization to the point where it's distracting, because it should be used judiciously when you're looking and you're trying to figure out what is it that I want to highlight or point out, or what is it that I want them to notice. When it comes to margins, it should be between 0.5 and 1 inch wide. Too little or too much of the margin, it can be distracting, and it could be a reason for why an employer wouldn't call you. Core 4 sections of a resume. So contact information is really important. So what I mean by that is your name, your email address, your phone number. Also, we want to have the education section. Now, because you are students and you're going to Baruch College, that is the thing that sets you apart from that. So that you're going to want to have at the very top of the page, and we'll talk about that more later. Work experience. So if you had any work experience, you're going to put that on here, and skills. And so we're going to delve into each one of those sections. So other sections that you could put in there are honors, awards, relevant projects, and courses and projects are one of my favorite things to help students with and put on their courses, especially like if you're trying to get into an industry that you don't have experience in. Putting relevant courses and projects on it is a way to kind of paint a picture of you being, say, a marketing person. So let's say you've never had a marketing internship, but you have done a project in one of your classes. You could use that information and use lingo that you've learned in your class to kind of paint a picture of, I'm a marketing person. So another thing you could put on there are interests, publications. Competitions are really cool to put on your resume as well, especially if it's relevant. For example, if you were a technology person and you put on the CUNY hackathon, like that might look really good. So leadership activities always look good. So if you're in a club or something like that, that's really important. Volunteer work, presentations, and professional organizations all help you paint a picture and help the employers know that you're the person that I want to invite for this interview. So contact information. So what you want to make sure is that your name is bold and in a larger font. You don't want it to be more than 2 font sizes larger than the rest of the text in your resume. We want to have your current contact information. The one that you're sending directly to the employer, you would want to have your street address on there. But for the one that, say, you're publishing online on LinkedIn or on Indeed that you're doing that, you may just want to have the New York, and the zip code on there. And if you have a website or a portfolio, sometimes people will put in their LinkedIn profile, their contact information. Now, education. If your GPA is greater than is 3.0 or above, you should put it on your resume because that's something to be very proud of. If it is less than 3.0, it's still something to be proud of. However, you may not want to put it on the resume. Bachelor of Business Administration. So spell out your degree. If you're getting a Bachelor of Business Administration, that's what you're getting if you're going to Zicklin School and you have a Zicklin major. If you are going to Weissman, you will have a Bachelor of Arts. And if you are public affairs, that's the Bachelor of Science. You're going to put your major and your minor. So this is optional to put your relevant coursework. So why I recommend that you do that is it helps paint a picture, especially if you don't have any experience in that industry, of how far along you are in the process. Of from these courses, I could be like, all right, so they've taken a decent number of finance courses, so they should know how to do whatever task it is that I want them to do. This helps the employers know that perhaps you've had at least exposure to some of the language and some of the terms that we're going to be talking about at this internship. What you're going to do is put expected, and then you're going to put May or June of 2020 is what you're going to put on there. So after you graduate, you no longer say expected, you're just going to put the actual date. And so we want you to prioritize your bullets based on relevancy. And so what I mean by that is, if I am going for a customer service role, and I had some customer service related tasks that I did at my job, I'm going to want to put those as like bullet 1 and bullet 2, because those are the things that they really care about. So when you write your bullets and you're outlining the tasks that you did at that job, I want you to think about, like, so for this job that I'm going for, which are the ones that show that I have the skills that they want and need. Quantify. It's important to quantify your experiences where you can. If you helped 150 to 200 customers a day, that's a way to quantify. This change that you made reduced the time it took to find files. So like if you were filing files and it used to take 20 minutes to find a file, and then it went down to 2 minutes, you could maybe say that you, as a result of organizing the files, it reduced the time to find it by 10%. And so 10% would be how you would perhaps quantify that. And don't discount part-time or transferable experiences. And so you never know with the job that you're doing. Listen, my first job was working at McDonald's. I had tons and tons of really good experience that I did at McDonald's. So for all of you who are working at part-time jobs, doing retail, working in food service, you're getting really good experiences, be it customer service, persuading people, sales. So there's lots of really good things that you have. And sometimes working with a career counselor can help you figure out what those are. It's important to use strong action verbs for each bullet. And so we will talk about that a little bit later, about the action verbs and how to make a better bullet. But strong action verbs that are targeted to the industry you're trying to get into make it a more robust resume and a better bullet to help attract the employers that you want. And on your resume, it's really important to have months and years that you were at jobs. Leadership activities. If you are part of a club, even if you're on a committee, you would put it on there. If you are like the president or vice president or chair of anything, you would want to put that on here. So add bullets for the activities, especially like if you had a fundraiser or if you were involved in the presentations. And they don't necessarily have to be career focused, but if they are, that's great. So this is one way to kind of show leadership, interest, and even to paint a picture of you being interested in a certain industry. Yeah, lots of students, they have like conferences, like Women in Business, they have a conference every year, the Pearls of Wisdom conference, and they invite their alum to come back. And so that's a nice thing to put on there as well. Organizing that shows organization skills, project management skills, event management skills. Don't discount the things that you're doing as a student in those activities. It's important to kind of stick to the skills that we have here. So kind of limit it to software skills or language skills. You should also put your level of proficiency on there. So if you are confident in your Excel skills, you might want to say intermediate. If you're not so much, maybe basic. And so for most people, the skills section is going to be at the bottom of the page. But for technology people, just know that your resume is slightly different, and that is going to be up towards the top of the screen. And then the language skills, it's important to show or kind of put on here whether you're fluent, conversational, or basic. So it's really important for you to be honest about your skill level on resumes. Volunteer experiences. So for those who maybe don't have experience, Even too, for some employers, they like that where they have a culture of volunteerism and they want to show that the people who they hire want to make a difference. They may be looking for volunteer experiences. You want to add descriptions to your volunteer experiences. So similar to your work experience, you can get very good transferable skills, especially if you're fundraising or you're organizing an event. There's so many really good skills that you can get from volunteering at a nonprofit. So don't discount this as a way to do it. Certifications is another section that you could put on there. If you're marketing or even to data analytics, you may want to show that you've gotten certified in Google Analytics. So like I have had some students who will take courses on Coursera or Train the Street or these other online programs. You could put them on here as a way to show I took extra effort to take this particular course so that I could have the skill that they don't necessarily teach me in my classes. So the Bloomberg course is a great course. It's 10 hours. I had a student do it in a weekend. Now granted, it's still a 10-hour course. It still took him 10 hours on a weekend to do it, but he definitely did it. How to build a better bullet. So your bullet should be clear, concise, show relevant skills and qualities. It should talk about how and what. Start with strong power action verbs. Be written in the correct tense. So if you are currently in your job, you write it in present tense. So you will write something, you will analyze something, and you will develop something. If you did the job in the past, you have to use past tense. And so that is something that recruiters really do pay attention to. So if you were at a job at the past and you still had present tense, sometimes that's a reason why they may not call you, is that maybe you didn't have the tense proper in your bullets. Good bullet should show results and accomplishment. It should be written using relevant industry terminology and not using personal pronouns like I and my. I like to tell students, when you're trying to build a more robust bullet, ask yourself the questions: who, what, where, when, why, how, and are there any regulatory agencies that I have to comply with? If you ask yourself those questions, you can start figuring out in any of those questions, is there some nugget or industry knowledge or lingo that might help paint a picture of me as being someone who's in that industry? So sometimes it's, how and what, and sometimes it's why. Sometimes, why are you doing this? What am I filing in that file? Why is it important to do that? Kind of going into those questions can help you explore what it was you were doing in a way that you hadn't really thought about. So applicant tracking system. In this day and age, there can be, especially for those big prestigious companies that students sometimes want to work for. So if you want to work for a big prestigious company, they have applicant tracking systems to help them weed through the thousands of resumes that they may get on their website. So what they do is it looks at your resume, right? Your resume goes into the system. It looks at the job description. It compares them, the two, and it determines what percent match you are. And what they have a threshold. They're like, all right, so if it's less than a 75% match, we're not going to call those, or we're not even going to look at those people. So before you or anybody ever looks at your resume, applicant tracking systems are kind of weeding through people and deciding who they're going to invite in there. So it's really important for you to include language of the industry that you're trying to get into, or lingo that they maybe list in the job description. So when you are doing your resume, it's really, really, really important to look at the job description just to make sure, like if you've done something similar to that, use similar language on your resume. So things to remember: keep it format simple, avoid colors and other graphic elements, meaning don't have any photos, logos, those types of things on there. Use common headings, avoid typos, include both acronyms and the spelled out terms. So if you have a special software like CRM, so if it's customer relationship management software, and then you spell it out CRM, just make sure you spell it out at somewhere on your resume so that people know what it is. Complete all fields on the applications. Now this is really important, and I'm going to tell you something else too. When you are filling out the fields, capitalize your first name, capitalize your last name. Spell out your street and use capital letters where you're supposed to. If you really, really want a job, you want to make sure that you target it and really take the time to think about, all right, when did I do something similar to that thing that they're saying on their resume? Avoid also using two words within your heading. The anatomy of a bullet. we want you to start graduating from I filed files, right? To using things, using adverbs, action verbs, quantifying it, putting details in it to show that I match your job. Efficiently managed and resolved over 20 daily incoming help desk tickets via System Service Manager. So this would be a good resume for a technology person. They want to talk about how they managed and resolved, because resolving problems are what you do when you are a CIS person or working with technology. And even too, for technology, it's really important to know what software they're using. Even too, looking at this one, quantifying it this way. So you can quantify by putting 20 daily, but also if you look to the next one here, decreased help desk tickets by over 10% by documenting and creating an IT procedural guide for users. So, so you can quantify you can quantify by calculating percent increase, percent decrease as a way to kind of look a little bit more sophisticated. They could have simply had a bullet that said documented and created an IT procedural guide for users. But by adding the results to it, so decreased help desk tickets and calls by over 10% by document, like that just makes it a little bit more sophisticated. Sometimes it's helpful to go to the Star Center for a resume review. And now that we're here doing a lot of online resume reviews, I'm encouraging you to come, make an appointment. We're here. All right, trash can documents. Let me explain to you what that means. So if your resume has any of these problems with it, it's going right into the garbage. So no matter how much time you spent on something, how wonderful a job you did on your cover letter, if your resume has any of these, it's going straight in the garbage and they are not going to look at it. You have no spelling errors or poor grammar. That's really, really important. Overuse of different fonts. So I've had people that have like all different like bolds and italics and you know, all sorts of colors. And so it's important to not overdo it either, because that could be distracting. Sloppy or inconsistent formatting. If you use different colored text or paper, I even had, so stick to white or off-white when you're printing it out. Do not put it on pink paper or blue to look cute. I had someone who laminated his. Don't do that. Avoid having a resume longer than one page. And avoid using a template or MS Word or any other resume template, because sometimes you know, the formatting may not be exactly what it is that you want to do. So I just wanted to remind you that we have the SCDC weekly newsletter. You should be getting that. If you're not getting it, check your spam just to make sure that you are still getting these. We often will talk about our workshops, job and internships that are coming up, employers that are coming on campus. Now we're going to be having more virtual employers kind of coming to talk with students online. So it's a good way for you to learn about different industries and jobs and companies. And we have off-campus career opportunities where you can kind of go like on a little field trip to a company, which I think is really cool as well. So all of that is in the Star Weekly newsletter. We also are on all the different social media channels, including Instagram. So our handle is Baruch SCDC. So please follow us on here to kind of get the latest of what's going on and being able to take advantage of everything that we have here. At Star, we have a blog, the SCDC blog, which has often other job opportunities that are not in other places. And so we have this right now, which is our walk-in hours, which is, we're not having walk-in hours, but normally we do. Normally they're Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 3 to 4:30, and Thursdays we have extended hours until 6:30. But just know during this time, you may not be able, we don't have walk-ins, but there's lots of opportunities for you to have a one-on-one session. You just sign up for a session using Star Search, and you select an online career counseling or an online resume review or online mock interview, and we can help support you in whatever we can during this transition between, you know, due to the coronavirus. Yeah, we will be helping and having online sessions. Multiple webinars coming up soon, so make sure you check your Star Search. We don't know if you don't know how to use Star Search, Gerald will be hosting a webinar tomorrow at noon to show you how to use Star Search. That's awesome. So what you have to do is you have to RSVP using Star Search, and he'll send out a link to all the registrants, okay? And also know that we have an app. We have a really cool app where you can also browse jobs, look for internships, make an appointment with us. So it's called Simplicity Jobs and Careers app. And so they have like a little balloon, and a briefcase icon. Thank you for your attention. Hopefully that was helpful. And just feel free to sign up for a resume review at the Star Center. Okay? Thank you, everyone. Bye.